Hello, bright, shiny beacons of light. It's Michael Sandler, and we're going to need you to get microphone close because we have a windstorm, 40 to 60 mile an hour winds, they're saying now, gust up to 100 miles an hour.
Here?
Yes.
Wow.
In Viva Las Vegas. So we want to talk with you about being stable in unstable times. So cue Mother Earth.
So let us know if you can hear us. Or let us know if you can't hear us.
I'm watching the numbers precipitously decline here. I don't know if the wind has scared everybody away. I know my wind can carry through a hurricane. My wind, that's a good way to put it. My voice can carry through a hurricane. I don't know about yours. So we need to know if you can hear the Pook Star on the mic here.
They can hear.
They can hear.
All right, cool.
So what are we doing in Vegas?
So we just spent the last week in Sedona, Arizona.
Yep.
Kind of feeling it out, seeing if that's where we want to be for a little bit after we return the rental RV right behind us. And we were having a conversation with our spiritual life/business mentor. And she asked a question. She asked, is there any place left that you feel called to visit? And for some reason, Vegas popped into my head. And
Viva Las Vegas!
Without any thought. And at this point in the trip, it didn't really make any sense because we're thinking, we've only got 2.5 weeks left. We've got to figure out where we're going to hunker down for the winter.
Yep.
Vegas.
And I still don't know what to make out of it, but we do know you have to follow that intuitive hit. You have to plug in and hear from Spirit. And so you were listening to Spirit, and it said, Michael, turn the RV, steer the boat around, and bring her to Vegas.
So we're here. And what has it been like for you?
I don't know what to make out of it. We brought Ruru on the strip, and that was stunning.
For those of you who are new to the channel, Ruru is our rescued rooster. And ordinarily we would bring him out, and actually it's around his bedtime. So
he's actually falling apart in the RV right now because he doesn't like two things. He doesn't like, actually three things. Being by himself, he doesn't like the dark, and he doesn't like wind.
Right.
And right now we're outside, we're not that far away, but and hopefully he can hear us, but the wind is just howling, and that's not fun for him.
So any ideas on why the universe compelled us to land in Vegas for a while?
The word that comes to mind is possibility. It wants us to open up to new possibilities. And it's interesting. Sedona and Shanita here is going, Sedona! It's interesting that Sedona is the place that I was saying, no to Sedona, no to Sedona, no to Sedona, until you present me with the option of Sedona versus Vegas. And then I'm like, let's do Sedona. Let's bring it on. But I consider myself a mountain ocean guy. I love the mountains. I love swimming in the ocean. I love climbing, running, dancing to the top of mountains, cross-country skiing, all of that. And yet that is not feeling quite right for this winter, which is actually, we're really Southern Hemisphere couple this winter because we're coming out of a slumber of, if you followed our story, a slumber of house showings, a slumber of smoke, a slumber of miscarriages, which is really the phoenix rising from the ashes. We're coming up from the ashes, and it's hard to rise from the ashes if you're in below zero temperatures and 400 inches of snow. So while I love winter, it may be that we're suited to have an endless summer this year. We never actually got a summer this year.
That's true.
So that was a long-winded.
We didn't have a summer this year because there was COVID and we were locked down, and then there was a fire. Not too far from our house, so we were smoked out.
You get sick when there's a fire. So what were you like this summer, which is really beginning of August through a week or two
I was
ago?
hibernating. I've been kind of in hibernation mode on and off for the last few years. Because 2 years ago, there was another fire.
We moved to Colorado and we were greeted with a fire a mile and a half from the house that burned all summer. So, and we won't go into the 3 miscarriages here, but a first trimester for many women is exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
So you're slumbering. And then you have a miscarriage and we're licking wounds and hibernating.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get up the courage to try again, and it's around and around you go. And then the next fire. And this is just saying that it feels like we're coming out of that cocoon. And what you're saying is, I want a player that has a player. It's interesting. It's very much
A Vegas term?
Vegas terms. I'm wanting a place that has, in Ayurvedic terms, Agni. Agni stands for heat or energy or fire. It doesn't necessarily mean forest
easy
fire.
on the fire, but yes, I want energy.
And I cannot think of another place on this continent other than, or at least I'm America-centric. That's what I know. So I can't think of another place in the continental U.S. other than Sedona, except for Tues, which spit us out, or Mount Shasta, which is kind of more slumbery, I believe, in the winter, than Sedona. Sedona is at the top of the list. But I feel there's a lot of Agni, heat, energy in Vegas. It's very much a get-her-done town.
Yeah. And when we launched Inspire Nation Show and this YouTube channel, we were actually based in New Jersey, which also has that get-her-done work ethic.
It's a road. It's not really a highway, but it's considered a highway just behind your house that is a feeder right into New York City. And so every morning people were in get-her-done mode.
And people were staying up late. Before we moved to New Jersey, we were going to bed at like 8 or 9 p.m. And when we moved to New Jersey, we were launching the show. It was 2 of us in the beginning. So Michael was doing all of the behind the scenes, the editing, the uploading, and you're up until 1 or 2 a.m.
On my better days. With lots and lots of tears, come 2 or 3 when I'm going, I wish I was to bed at 1 or 2 because I had to be back up at 7 or 8 to get working on the next show.
So being in a place where everybody else is wide awake at 1 or 2 a.m. kind of supported your...
So are you saying you want to live here? Because, well, first off, I got to get this on the record and see how this has to do with
I'm not saying
stability.
I want you to stay up.
Well, are you saying, Michael, I know you're doing a late edit and you're having a hard time staying awake. Why don't you go down to the strip for a little bit and kind of juice yourself up? In fact, go into the what do they call them? That tells you how much I gamble. Go into casinos where they're pumping pure oxygen. And then come back and get some work. Is that what you're saying?
No, thankfully you don't have to do the editing or uploading anymore.
Oh, thank God.
But yeah, so let's bring it back to the topic tonight, which
Okay.
is finding stability in an unstable world.
All right. Do we go to the creek bed or the river bed, or do we start with something else? The winds are howling around us. The trees are dancing behind us. If you don't know where we are, you'd swear there's a tropical storm or something around here. And there is, minus the rain at the moment. But how are you? Are you grounding right now?
I am grounding, surprisingly. I never thought of Vegas as a place to feel grounded. I was calling it, jokingly, the man-made vortex. But just outside of Vegas, there's the Red Rock State Park. And that's where our dear friend Elisa brought us this afternoon for a hike. And when we got there, it was a, well, you describe.
Yeah, I have a bias. I always like to share my bias. I'm a tree hugger. Give me a tree any day of the week. I want green. I want trees. I want vegetation. That's what historically gives me peace. But I claim above all else, even though I may whine and complain, to be very open. And it was super peaceful, with rocks sticking out at all funny angles, red rock striations. This mountain that we were hiking up on called Clark Mountain is kind of a giant like shark fin sticking out of the red rock. And it was so tranquil and peaceful. And we hiked down, we crested over this red sandstone down into a valley where there is, I pray, sometimes a river.
Well, we were talking about maybe the water is now underground.
And what did we do there? What did I do there?
As soon as you got to the riverbed, you took off your backpack and you sat down. I thought you were going to make a snow angel or a gravel angel.
So there's red rock all around and sandy tan-colored pumice. But then there's maybe 50 feet wide going up the canyon, gray stone, pebbly, but still sharp because it's not regular water that flows through there. That's a fast-moving riverbed without the river. And I'm very energetically sensitive. We call me a dowsing rod on occasion. I got the titanium parts going through me, and it felt magical. And I think you wanted me for video to go run off camera or something and pretend to do something. And I'm like, oh God, I don't want to move. I just want to be plugged into the earth. And I just lay down.
Yeah, it kind of
I wasn't
felt like,
moving.
in the past, we've had the opportunity to lay down on crystal beds, and that's kind of what it felt like.
It was one of the top 3 places I think I've ever sat on earth as far as peacefulness.
Now, we didn't lay down in any place in Sedona, so I don't know that it's a fair comparison.
I'm going to go with it's a fair comparison because in Sedona, I didn't want to lay down. The energy didn't feel peace. I was barefoot a bunch.
It was also scorching hot.
Yes, I said hotter than the blazes of heaven. That was my expression for Sedona.
And we didn't end up anywhere with much shade, so there wasn't really a inviting place to lay down.
Yeah.
But with that said, laying down here in the Red Rock State Park felt more grounding than any place we had been in Sedona.
And that's an important component, is to be grounded or to be stable. It's important to sniff out the energy of around you. Sniff out the energy of the music. Sniff out the energy of the people you're hanging out around. Sniff out the energy of the earth and find those spots that bring you peace and hang there. And the places that bring you away from peace. So last night we took Ruru on the Strip. I'm going to diverge, but it's on topic. We took Ruru on the Strip. And we can talk about this a bunch, but the long and short of it is we went until the energy, what did you feel all of a sudden when it was time to turn?
Anxious. Yeah, I felt really anxious and uptight, and I just wanted to go back.
We call ourselves...
No, I don't. Actually, you always say that. You always say we call
I proudly call myself a skittish deer.
I do not embody that.
What I mean by skittish
Animal
deer is deer are beautiful. Deer are very peaceful. But when the energy doesn't feel right, deer gets out of town.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
I know.
And so when we're on the Strip, and at first it feels really good, we go a little bit more, it feels really good, then it's starting to get a little bit funny. Somebody reaches out and pets Ruru without asking, which is really odd. And Papa's starting to get a little bit concerned. And then all of a sudden, there's people coming from all directions. And I'm going, it's turn time. Sort of like what happens when we're on the trail. So we felt it when we were laying down in the riverbed.
We looked at our watches and we saw, oh, we got a YouTube Live.
No, before that, Pookie, there was a puff of wind.
Yes, there was. There was a big puff of a gust of wind, and it suddenly got a lot cooler. Like the temperature dial went, and I was almost cold. I was actually concerned that I had not brought enough clothes for the hike back.
I thought it was really cool that we got on top of this saddle, shall we say, and all of a sudden the sun went away. It had been super bright sunshine, and it goes away, and you look up, and what did you see?
I saw just this tiny little baby cloud in the sky.
One cloud. But this is the interesting thing. One cloud. You looked a degree or two to the right, and there was a giant, massive front that you could see. And I'm like, well, it might be one cloud for the moment, but give it a few minutes. Becoming stable in uncertain times, I think, means becoming more aware of your environment. Aware of people, places, things, clouds, weather, everything, and taking that into account. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that.
And so, it's interesting. I'm looking at the command key on the computer.
While you're looking at the command key, I'm going to adjust the light because you're a little bit in the shadow.
Okay. When we talk about finding stability in unstable times, the reason the command key jumped out at me is because we get to take command of our inner energy. We have, to say limited control of our outer environments, I believe that's even a gross exaggeration. We have almost no control of our exterior environment. But we have...
Just as you said that, the wind pushed the light.
So she had adjusted the wind. She had adjusted the light perfectly. And the universe goes, au contraire. Although now I'm looking out to realize, to see how much I'm going to be able to come here. That is so cool. Thank you, angels. I'm not going to say we have total control of our internal environment. Maybe some of us do. On this journey, I have not. I have been whacked good. We got here yesterday to Poshland, the most amazing RV luxury park in the country. Woohoo!
Technically, I think it's rated in the top 5.
All right, so there might be Beverly Hills, maybe a Palm Springs or something better. You'll have to let me know. We'll have to go there. We get here. We take Ruru out. We meet the neighbors. We put Ruru down on the grass. And he's like, life is good. And the number of complaints we had within like the first 2 minutes. I don't know how people could have even speed dialed the office.
I don't know how
quickly.
many complaints there were.
They said multiple complaints. That's all we know.
No, that could just be 2.
It could be one person calling multiple times. And our hearts, because we were going, wow, maybe we can make this RV lifestyle work for us where we're not roughing it. There's nothing wrong with roughing it, but running a business while boondocking. There's
nothing wrong with roughing it, but you can prefer to do the opposite of rough it.
I like the opposite of rough it.
And at this particular phase in our lives, we prefer to
pamper ourselves. We work really hard, so why not? We all deserve it. Why not? But our dreams were a little bit stuffed out before we went to bed. We're in trouble. Will we be able to stay here tomorrow? Are we getting kicked out? And this certainly goes to our ancestral wounds that we get to work on of, how's that term go? Not something invasion. Of
sanctuary?
Sanctuary invasion, but of fleeing, of us being refugees.
Refugees.
And so we woke up this morning and I was pretty bummed. And I did some work. I did some tapping. I did a bunch of tapping work on you, I believe, as well. And I said, look, I'm bummed. I said, it's not the be all end all. I hope I don't bring you down, but usually if I go down, you go down. I said, but I'm just going to observe this and we're going to be fine. So I cannot always perfect my internal environment. When the winds are swirling, when people are calling, when whatever is going on. But what I can do is observe that environment, take action, not let it define who I am, and then realize that everything is an oscillation, everything is a wave. If I simply realize that that trough is now going to come back up, I'll be fine. I don't know if you have anything to add there. If not, I'll talk about walking down the street with Ruru and how everybody was loving us.
It's something I'm still learning about you. And it's not just you, but it's still a challenge for me when you start to go down and I start to follow with you, even though I can tell myself this is temporary. He's going to come back up in his own time. And usually it's within a few hours. So yeah, it's just some rewiring that I'm still working on.
And you're doing amazing. And for myself, I get to be even better, but I do realize on some level, it's sort of like timing in the universe. You're going, wait for it, wait for it. It's not the other shoe about to fall. When you feel really icky, if we're talking about stability in uncertain times, and you can wait through that pause, we can call them dark nights of the soul, or we can call them mini blips on the radar. All of a sudden, so what happened? I went over to the place to sign up for another night, and they asked me, "So how are things going?" And I'm like, "Actually, we feel like we're hiding in our RV, miserable right now." I'm like, "It's not your fault at all." I said, "But we haven't had complaints at any RV place we've been at ever." And then there were phone calls coming in almost from the first few minutes we got here. I said, "So I'm not feeling the love." And they're like, they were so beautiful. They were so loving. They were so kind. They're like, "Take the rooster outside. Maybe cock-a-doodle-doos a bunch. Bring them back inside. But you've got to give them some grass time. We love you. Everything will be fine. Don't worry about them." And then I get back here, and an RV is driving by as I'm getting into our RV and stops. And I'm like, I wonder if they're just working on their RV. Yeah. Next thing you know, they're knocking on the door. What happened?
Well, what was going through your mind at that point?
As I came back?
Well, as you saw this person walking up to the RV.
Well, usually I think it's all about me. But I'm like, it can't be. There's no reason they're stopping to ask me a question. I'm just going to go about my business. And it was. But actually it wasn't. It had nothing to do with me.
So they came by because they were looking for Ruru, the rooster.
I had met only like 5 people yesterday. And those were 2 of the 5 people that I had met. And they were leaving town, but they wanted to say goodbye to Ruru before they left. And they wanted to check out the Ruru Instagram page, which is Ruru the Rooster, ROO, the Rooster. Jessica's putting it here, our Ruru the Rooster, or our hashtag, which is hashtag where's Ruru. And they wanted to say goodbye to Ruru. They said that seeing Ruru was the highlight of their entire trip.
Aww.
And that's how the morning went. As I went for a walk this morning, people came running up to me. A woman came running up out of her RV in her pajamas to want to take a picture of Ruru. We were welcomed with such loving arms, because yesterday you're looking up posh RV places going, we can make this work. And this morning you're going, we're doomed.
I didn't say we're doomed, but my heart sank, and so yours.
Oh, completely. This is not just about you.
It was definitely a lesson in not throwing in the towel too early.
It's the oscillation. You're at the bottom. It feels...
When something bad happens and you find your emotions crashing, at that point it's so easy to just like throw your hands up in the air and go, it's not going to work out, or dreams are dashed, whatever. when really you haven't counted all your chips yet.
And I'm glad you said it that way, because that's where I'm going, which is we got to hang out with one of our Inspire Nation coaches, certified coaches today, Elisa Wampole, and her husband is one of the top professional poker players in the world. He split like a $2 million kitty earlier this year. He's been at the very top in was it World Championships of Poker, and he talks about the oscillation. He says when you are on top, you feel like you're always going to be on top. And when you're at the bottom, you feel like it will never turn around. And the best of the best understand it's all a wave.
Yeah.
It's all energy, and it's going to all shift. Not that it's all going to go bad on you, but simply ride the wave. So Elisa was talking about all these professional poker players who are totally stress-free. They're making millions, they're losing millions. They could be losing $1 million in a night, and they're stress-free because they understand it's an oscillation. If instead they panic, and this is what happens in the markets. The market goes down, people panic and yank all their money out, not remembering it's an oscillation. And they sell low, and they buy high, and they destroy themselves. If you realize that everything, like right now, we're looking for that land, and I ain't buying anything right now because it looks like a massive bubble. Maybe it isn't, but I know that everything follows a wave. And if I understand that, just like these poker players, then I don't get wrapped up into where I'm at. And they don't get wrapped up into where they're at. Instead, I think you called it earlier today.
What?
You said you were chill, man. I'm mouthing it like they can't see my mouth. Chill, man. Or I'd like to say I'm cool as a cucumber. Even driving down the road in the 35-foot, 14-ton RV, chill, man. Cool as a cucumber. Because as soon as you tighten up, stability in unstable times is about not tightening up. Just realize this too shall pass.
So my dad likes to trade stocks.
Yeah.
For fun.
And he's good at it.
He's retired, and this is like his.
I'm gonna honk
his
my
hobby.
horn off camera here.
Actually, sometimes he says it's like a full-time job. And when the stock market goes down, and he watches a lot of his holdings go down, I asked, like, does he get stressed about it? And he says, no, you can't have emotions about this. That's why I can do it so well. Can you talk a little bit about how emotions play in all of this? And
oh yeah, it's like I will tell you. Last night I'm like, all right, my ego's going to have a pity party now. But I'm going to watch my ego rather than participate in my ego. Huge, huge difference. I'm not going to act upon those emotions. I will watch them. I will observe them. I will try to love myself up at my best, at my worst. I will say, I'm just hanging out here. I don't want any hot chocolate right now. I don't want any food. I'm just going to wait for the wave to pass.
so you're not denying your emotions, and you're not stuffing your emotions down.
Never, 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 never. I'm observing the emotions. I may even be having discussions. I don't want to feed the emotions. I don't want to go, you're right, you really blew things. That used to be my MO. So while I make fun of it, that used to be my MO. You want me closer here? You want me TV close?
That's good.
All right. So we can move this there, closer to you. So I'm not denying the emotions, but I'm not being run by the emotions. This far down the rabbit hole, I can shift relatively fast, but I've got to admit, I'm loving this RV lifestyle, but it hasn't worked for you. And so when we finally found, or yet, maybe it's starting to, when we finally found a way yesterday, and then immediately, it's my big wound, I get in trouble. I've messed something up. Immediately, I go down. But let's not make poor decisions while we're down, like bailing and selling all the stock, or saying, that's it, I'm giving up, I'm whatever, throwing the wheels off of the RV. Let's instead simply observe it. Now, for myself, we operate on different channels on this one. Movement is my greatest thing in the world. Movement actually in cleaning. And so I went on a laundry fest this morning.
Is that why?
It was also the first time we've had laundry machines in weeks. And so I was grooving on doing the laundry.
Yeah.
And so I'm going back and forth doing laundry. I'm taking Ruru for walks, which you can't go 5 feet without somebody coming out to say how much they love Ruru and can they have their picture taken with Ruru.
Yeah.
Oh, we have a special on YouTube on Tuesday night. You've got to check it out with Ruru. And if I forget, we have a few myself and want a strategy session to see if coaching is right for you. We can probably get you in a few weeks' time. So Jessica's going to put the link down for
or
that.
if Aya is moderating the chat, Aya can copy and paste the link, hopefully.
Cool. So we ride the wave. As this wind is blowing here, we surf the wave of emotion rather than be the emotion. And your dad's a cool cucumber. My guess is that it's not that he doesn't feel anything, but he has played this game long enough that he knows that emotion that's saying, sell, everything's wrong, is not real. He's in there. We all get to be on there. Warren Buffett is in there for the long. Got it.
Let me rearrange the lights so they're more stable.
For the long game. We get to be in it for the long game. So somebody was asking, is this live, really live or pre-recorded? Debbie, no, it is live. That's the challenge when it comes to watching. It's a challenge when it comes to watching politics. It's the challenge when it comes to watching the weather. It's the challenge when it comes with watching almost or observing almost anything outside of us. Is by design, particularly media, by design, wants you to play the short game. It wants to get your emotion of fear right now in this moment. The crazy, beautiful thing is, we have all been around for 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 years, however many years it is that you've been around on planet Earth this time around, and you're still here, which means you are going to survive. You have a 100% track record. You're going to survive just about everything until the last thing. That's the only thing you won't survive. So if we realize that and play the long game, we truly realize the importance of the words, this too shall pass. One of the interesting things, and I haven't read it yet, there was a Bible open in the laundromat, and I haven't even read it yet. I took pictures of those pages.
Yeah, you mentioned it.
It was talking about when you feel adrift and you feel there is no place to come home to. And I believe what they're saying is come home in your heart. And I'll read that tonight. This Bible was open to a random page left out in the laundromat. And I walked past it and I'm like, wait a second. It's always the case. If a book is open to a random page, there's something on there for you. And I stopped and started to read it, took a picture. Maybe I'll even make a post about it when I read the whole thing. There are so many signs and symbols from the universe continuously here to show you you're supported, you're loved, and everything's going to be all right. Just like going to pay for another night tonight, I'm told, loved, supported, everything's going to be all right. Getting back here to the RV, somebody pulls up to say, you just made our whole trip. Loved and supported, and know everything's going to be all right. When we go to a place of prayer, when the whole world is spinning around us and asking for signs and symbols, and believe me, I've been praying like crazy. I don't know if you know that, probably so. I have been praying like crazy in my better moments. In my worst moments, I might go down, forget to pray, and then I go back to pray. In fact, Meowsers, I think it was Meowsers, Meowsers or Lovebug, lay on the keyboard this morning, and it went into the keyboard speak, where the computer starts talking.
Yeah.
And the words that came up were connected to spirit, and then something always connected to spirit.
Wow.
were the words that came up. And I couldn't move the love bug or Meowsers to screenshot it, but the signs and symbols are always there. None of us are alone. We couldn't be, no matter how much we tried. Have you been feeling that on this trip?
Feeling
connected, feeling guided, feeling inspired, meaning not feeling hallelujah,
yeah.
but feeling.
I would say it's been in waves for me. Yeah. Probably because we've been, as you said, feeling a bit adrift, especially in the beginning of the trip.
I feel plenty of drift right now.
So for those of you who haven't been following our journey, about, I guess, well, almost a month ago, we picked up this rental RV, which I guess you can't see anymore.
But there is a giant 35-foot, 14-ton, 3 slides, beautiful Winnebago behind us somewhere in the dark.
And then we packed up all of our belongings, moved them into storage, or brought them on the RV. We actually ended up bringing way too much on the RV. And this all happened in another house. So part of the reason for originally this trip had a different point, but now one of the goals of this trip was to find our next home base.
Yeah, originally it was going to be to heal, to recover, and sort of get a vacation. And instead it's been to cast us adrift, to really, when I'm working with a coaching client and they come to me and they say I'm completely lost, I really, please forgive me everybody, I want to go, woohoo! It means you finally let go of everything. And when you let go of everything, something magical can come. And I recognize that in us. I recognize that when I email somebody right now saying, hey, we've got our automatic writing book coming out in 2 months. Would you like to write a testimonial to it? And then if we get into the discussion, I'll tell them, I feel lost right now. But lost doesn't mean the same lost as, I guess there's several definitions of lost. There's lost as in all is lost. And then there's lost as in I'm open to something more. And right now we have let go of all the old to say we are open to something more. Do you feel open right now?
I do. Otherwise we wouldn't be in Vegas.
So do you want to live in Vegas?
I could live in Vegas, actually. Somehow we've narrowed down our choices, and this is just for the winter. It's just for the next 3 months. We've narrowed down our choices to Sedona or Vegas, which you would think are on like polar opposite ends of the spectrum. But what I'm finding is there's a big spiritual draw in Vegas, and our friend Elisa pointed out that it might be because the darkness needs to be balanced by light. So it is known as the city of sin. And
although I must say, there's been, when we walked the strip last night, there was a lot less sin there than ever.
On the surface.
At least on the surface. Don't know what's going on under the surface. Don't need to know.
But this supposedly massive darkness is going to need a lot of light to balance it. So
what I found really cool, maybe way off topic, maybe not, is Elisa kept saying time and time again, and Andrew was saying it as well, that all the convention centers are closed, a lot of the service industries are closed, and Vegas, to survive, is going to have to reinvent herself. She's going to have to find a different way. That's us. That's rising from the ashes. The city itself, all of these billions, I'm guessing it's trillion-dollar industries here, are literally going to have to reinvent themselves. If that's not surfing a wave of beautiful, positive change, I can't think of what is. It's definitely a massive shift. And so if we get stuck in the Vegas vortex, and believe me, that's not my choice, I choose Sedona because but I've said it on every single show here. Whatever she wants will make me happy. I will come along kicking and screaming, and whatever she wants will make me happy. But there is a massive energy of change, sort of like, geez, tonight with all of the trees going, there's a massive energy of change. But what's really cool is we're in a vortex.
By how much our hair is blowing around.
Not much at all. It's 40, 50, 60 mile an hour winds around us, and in here it's like 2. That's stability. It's being the eye at the center of the storm.
Yeah, so one of the things that excites me about Vegas is that we've spent the last few years in very remote places where it's been super peaceful, super great places to
Oh no.
to cocoon
Oh no.
and heal. And why what?
You're right. I mean, I hadn't thought of the cocoon factor. Every place we go, our natural tendency, you've got me thinking of the Costanza effect. George Costanza, in my favorite episode of Seinfeld, turns his life around when he starts doing the exact opposite of everything he thinks he should do. And so our natural tendency is to go to the hills and someplace quiet.
Yeah. Now, Sedona, I think, does have the ability to, with its vortexes, help us amplify our messages and launch our projects. But Vegas also has that ability too. And Vegas comes with all of these.
I heard a door, so I was just making sure our door is closed.
I forget what I was going to say.
Vegas has the ability to, so you talked about amplification, and you said Vegas has the ability to amplify our project.
Oh, then I was saying that it comes with all these conveniences that we haven't had. Like
running water.
What are you talking about?
I know, actually, this past week we hadn't had running water.
Yeah,
in the
no, but I'm comparing Vegas to other places that we've lived.
Okay. What are the conveniences?
Picking up supplies.
Mm-hmm.
Getting to a major airport so that we could travel someplace or have people travel to us.
And in theory, I'm very excited. I really want to get a full-time RV like yesterday, but I'm really excited about being able to go travel and meet with guests and do interviews in person. I think that could be a lot of fun. I honestly don't know how to do it. Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
I know how to do interviews.
So in Vegas, we're much more accessible to a lot of the authors that would be on your show, our show, your interviews.
Still our show, but we can either get to them very easily or the guests can get to us easily.
Whereas where we've been in the past has been remote. And Sedona is also remote. It's 2 hours from the airport. It's a 5-hour drive from Vegas. Really close to some national parks, but you're not going to find your guests in the woods.
It's interesting because I don't know if I ever spoke with you about it, and I know I wouldn't have moved there, but I'm like, look, if you want to be able to meet the people, bump into the people, make the connections, then you need to be in LA for your show. Maybe there are other possibilities.
You're saying you're considering LA now?
No. Look, I'm not unconsidering anything, but I'm saying maybe Las Vegas affords opportunity to run into people, to make connections, to work with. I mean, that's part of why we moved to Aspen, and that totally did not work out because we positioned ourselves up against the hill, but nobody who lived in Aspen actually lives in Aspen. I wanted to be able to meet with people who are doing amazing things, to make those connections, to be the circle or the hub in the circle, and be able to radiate our message out to the world.
Yeah, and ordinarily when there isn't COVID, there are a lot of conventions in LA. There are a lot of actually spiritual events that happen here. Even though people don't think of Vegas as spiritual, think of it as the complete opposite. But our friend Elisa was saying that there are a lot of meetups. There are a lot of activities where spiritual people gather, and she started listing all these things that she's done in in recent years. And I was like, you just listed more events than I've experienced or been exposed to in like the last 5 years.
So I will remain open. We will certainly find out in future episodes what happens, but my job will simply be to be the rock, to be the anchor, to be your stable force that allows you to leverage it to whatever. I do have one request. I don't know how we make that work here. It is my one greatest request. Is there a way that we can still be close to the trails? I don't know on that.
I don't know.
We'll
And
find out.
I'm not saying that I prefer Vegas over Sedona. I'm just highlighting all these surprising benefits to moving and living in Vegas that I hadn't ever thought of. And that all happened because we actually came here and we were open to it. And, you know, maybe the big takeaway is that there are RV parks like this around the country that would make us super happy to visit if we decided to RV full time.
And that to me is the most exciting, because there's a lot of newness and new energy, and yet there's a sense of stability as well. We came in here and it's like, oh, we're home, right? It felt stable. It was a port in the storm. I think they say any port in the storm, but this is a good port. And so it might be that. But what's really interesting, going back to the stability too, is recognizing when it's time to move. So we spent a week in Sedona, which was originally the plan, but it felt like Sedona was sucking us in. Where we were, the RV park across from a cemetery in the gravel, it started to feel not right.
Yeah, we started to feel like our energy was getting a little stuck and stale.
And while we're saying stability in the storm, we're also saying follow the energy, feel the energy inside of yourself. Where is it leading you? Where is it guiding you? What is it pulling on you to do? And the energy was saying, get out of town. And so like we were thinking of leaving yesterday morning, and then come Friday night, it's like, well, maybe not. And Saturday morning, I'm like, we're gonna go. I'm like, what would it take if we had to leave in only 10 minutes? And you're like, we don't have to. And I'm like, I feel like the ground is sucking us down. I need to pack up and get us moving. Some people are, what about Canada? What about this? What about the other?
Canada hasn't opened its borders yet. So even if we wanted to go to Canada, we can't.
I want to go to Camden. I want to go to Banff. I want to see the area. I have so many amazing positive experiences in Toronto and Vancouver and other parts of Canada. We can't get there right now. Yeah. Puerto Rico, we've heard a bunch of times, is interesting as well. Portugal has been coming up time after time lately.
But Portugal is also still close to Americans.
And it also makes me wonder about the sleeper factor, if we're looking for just that quiet comfort. And right now, whether it is, I can't believe I'm saying this, I'm a water guy. I'm not an anything. We don't define ourselves as anything.
Or somebody asked, well, why not move next to a beach?
So,
well, we actually don't have that much fun on beaches.
We
did. He swims. He's a swimmer.
I'm a big swimmer, meaning I swim long distance.
I can swim, but I also get that ooga booga feeling in big open water.
And when we lived on the Outer Banks in North Carolina, basically a couple blocks from the beach, would you say? It wasn't. All right, here's the long and short of it. Look for what lights up your spouse. That's because
that's not entirely true, because when I talk about moving here, you're like woo woo.
I am, but we know this, and it depends on the dynamic of your relationship. Certainly, we know this, that when you light up, I light up. When you're in a better place, I'm in a better place.
Well, it goes both ways. When you go down, I go down.
Yeah. When you moved, we all moved to Jersey. You moved, I moved, we all moved to Jersey. From Maui, from near the beach. Actually, we did this thing of cocooning ourselves. We lived thousands of feet up on the side of a volcano rather than where the action was. And we sucked the energy out of ourselves. And we sucked the finances out of ourselves. And then we sucked the health out of ourselves.
So the point that I was actually going to make is that it sounds like we're being really heady about this, but in the end, it's all about the energy, and it was the energy or the voice in my head that said Vegas, go to Vegas, that we wound up here. It's not because I rationalized, oh, Vegas, there's a major airport and there's lots of conveniences because it's sprawling. So of course there's going to be a lot of shopping.
Nothing. My mind is just going to. It's giving me the list of reasons not Vegas right now. The opposite of eco. Where do they get their water? Where do they get their electricity? Where do they get their?
You know,
That's the mind.
We wound up in New Jersey not because we decided that would be the best thing for us.
I knew it would be.
We wound up in New Jersey because we had no alternative at the time. Because I was sick and we were near bankrupt. And my family was there, so they were there to help support us. But it ended up being the best thing for us.
And here's how I did New Jersey, and here's how I'm going to do Sedona or Vegas, although it's a running inner dialogue joke with myself. Anywhere but Sedona, anywhere but Vegas, anywhere but. But it's a running joke now because I know I'm a chameleon. I'll make peace with anywhere, and I will thrive anywhere.
I've talked about moving to Sedona actually ever since we got to New Jersey.
I think it's been a threat.
Because no, it was not a threat. I don't want to tell the whole story. Kicked off from Maui and returned to New Jersey. And New Jersey is kind of humid, hot and humid in the summertime, and that did not feel good for someone who's recovering from mold. So I started thinking about going to the desert to bring myself out. And I actually flew out to Sedona with my dad to check it out.
Yeah, of which I was very supportive.
And I fell in love with it. And then I came back and you didn't like the idea. And anyway, for the next 5 years, every once in a while, I kind of test the water and say...
Did you notice this looks a lot like a little scorpion stinger?
Okay, one finger. I test the water. And I would suggest moving to Sedona. And each time you would say anywhere about Sedona.
It, to me, had an over-the-top energy. And I wanted more grounding, and I had some experiences of struggling with that amount of energy. But I wasn't grounded. And I like to believe I'm very grounded now.
Yeah. So the funny thing is, now that I've thrown Vegas in the pot with Sedona, Michael is trying to convince me why Sedona is so great.
It's so funny when you're given A or B, and you horrifically don't want B, but then you're given, well, then we could always go to C. All of a sudden, B is looking really good.
The whole reason I brought us here.
Apparently so.
And if it didn't work, I was going to say, let's move to LA.
And I love everybody everywhere. And I have actually lived outside of LA. I lived in Redlands. Now that's like 120 miles outside of LA, but it all sort of kind of blends. So I have lived there.
Well, just because we don't like LA or resonate with LA doesn't mean we don't like the people in LA.
No, absolutely. There was a place I was going with this. What Sedona has that I'm so excited about for both of us and for you is you can go out your backyard and be on trails. You can go out your front yard and you can play. You are every which way that you go, you're surrounded by trails. And what she's going is
what I've been telling you for years.
Yeah, I know. But what they're not actually my favorite kind of trails, and they're not actually my favorite places to ride, but it's just so incredibly accessible. And you have lit up, and my health, man, I'm not trying to talk about my legs here, but there was a picture of me holding Ruru. I don't know if that made it on Instagram last night. Of me standing on top of this thing with this giant like fountainy thing behind me.
Yeah. And
I've got the legs that I had when I was racing bikes in Europe again. And that came out of riding in places like Sedona.
And that came out of riding a 50-pound e-bike without the motor on.
True, but there you can ride a 50-pound e-bike without the motor on. Here, you're in the city. I don't think you really want to go ride a 50-pound or whatever.
Okay.
All right. So
I guess we're moving to Sedona.
I'm not saying which. I leave it to you.
For the short term.
I leave it to you, Poop Star. I leave it to you.
What I don't remember if I mentioned this at the very beginning. No, I don't think I did. So what our mentor suggested to us is to think of just the next 3 months. Where do you want to spend the next 3 months? And that totally took the pressure off of us, because then we were like, oh, this isn't a forever decision.
Mm-hmm. I think my big thing as wanting to be the Rock is I have no idea how to do the next 3 weeks. And not everybody will get to follow the journey and see. But I have no idea how we're going to say, let's say we decide to go to Vegas. And I'm not saying rule out Vegas. I'm still being open. But let's say you decide to go to Vegas. I have no idea how to actually get us here once we return our RV with 3 kitty cats, with the rooster, and where we're going to live that we're allowed to live with our rooster. Or we go to Sedona. I have no idea how to return the RV and get us to Sedona, or where we're going to live in Sedona, or where we're going to live, whether we're going to allow a rooster in Sedona.
Yeah.
And so it is easy to wake up each morning in a state of, I think the official pharmaceutical term is holy crap. And I just get to, I get to breathe into it and say, all right, we've come this far. We've been guided this far. We will be guided the rest of the way. We just have to follow one step at a time, not try to see the whole picture. Sort of like 3 months, 3 weeks, maybe it's 3 days, maybe it's 3 steps, and allow the rest to unfold. Exciting.
I mean, this whole trip has kind of been like that. It's totally not the path that we had planned. We had planned on going from Colorado north and then west to the coast, and of course there were fires, so we didn't do that.
Well, even before that, we had planned on Alaska and going into Canada.
That didn't last very long.
No, couldn't get those borders open.
And then coming down and coming through maybe Vegas, and then going to the East Coast, which is crazy to think that we could get there.
We're gonna have a talk with Kyle Gray.
Why?
Well, because Kyle Gray was saying you've got to go to Vegas when we interviewed him on the show.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm sorry.
So back to the original topic, finding stability in an unstable world. And I don't know that this is something that you've been experiencing, but when we set out on this trip, what I was really searching for was community. Because we've been kind of isolated, and we've been in places where there aren't a whole lot of like-minded individuals. Really, really compassionate people, but not people that really got the woo-woo stuff. Like, if you started talking about angels and intuition, whatever, they'd look at you and they would try to have an open mind, but they're just, I don't explain.
Well, it's like my cyclist friends. My cyclist friends would totally get riding the bicycle and riding up a mountain and riding whatever. But if you said, well, let me teach you automatic writing, where you're going to turn your journaling into channeling and be able to talk to God, they would have gone, it just wouldn't have computed.
Yeah. And it's not that people are necessarily judgmental, or if they were keeping it to themselves. But those kind of comments would probably be met with, oh, that's interesting.
Shuffle.
And what we're really looking for is like, oh, that's so cool. Or I've heard of that. Tell me more. Or yeah, that's what I've been doing. So we've really missed that, and we haven't had that since we lived on Maui, and we left Maui in 2015. So I wanted to find a place where we would have that kind of community. But then what I discovered is, as we were traveling, we had friends in nearly every state. Well, actually, every state we've traveled to, we've had friends. Um, and being on the road, it was actually so much easier to connect with them. They're usually it just happens, right? Out of sight, out of mind, and you lose touch with your friends who don't live locally. And this has been a wonderful opportunity to connect with people, and that's been really grounding for me.
We're learning who our friends are, and they're everywhere. They're everywhere. And so we have community. We have actually built community. Everywhere we go, there's people waiting for us.
And
yes,
you guys
thank
who
you.
are watching, if we ended up coming to your town or your city and we met with you, we would feel that connection and we would feel that community feeling. So I guess what I'm learning is that I don't need to be in one place to have that sense of community, that sense of stability, that wherever we go, we can seek out those diamonds in the rough.
Wherever we go, someone has our back. Because we've had a lot of people's backs. And they're waiting with around on the plane, and they give you 4 national parks in 3 hours or something. Out of the blue, if you could put that energy out there with somebody amazing people.
I felt so at home when we arrived at Dr. Valley Nelson's home.
Their family. It's our family now. So that's everywhere. And you guys as well. So I guess it's both. Home, when it comes to stability, home is where the heart is. Home is on the inside. Find that stability on the inside. But also, it's not isolating yourself, whether that's literal or metaphorical. Is having those connections, I think, can be invaluable during this. Connections, true connections, loving connections, not people who are going to tell you your doom and amplify your worries, fears, and concerns, but people who really love you and want the best for you, unconditional.
Did you want to take some questions? We're
well over, so let's take just a few questions. And first off, again, we have a limited amount of coaching opening back up in a few weeks, as we're going to be off the road soon. So if you want to sign up for a strategy session with Jessica or myself, whichever you're more interested in having coaching with, you can simply go to inspirenationshow.com/coaching and sign up for a strategy session with us. If you're serious about coaching, maybe you can type that in here, HTTP. And secondly, we've got our next boot camp coming up in just over a week, where once a week for a month, it's an intensive program to help you in your life. It's and with the clearings, with the group intention work, it's heavy stuff. Meaning we do a lot of work together, and it can make a massive difference in your life. We'll have up the URL for that next week. But we are going to have a boot camp next Sunday. We'll have the URL. We're going to have a boot camp each Wednesday for the next 4 Wednesdays, starting in the beginning of November, of finding stability in this crazy time. And we're going to help you get through this time as a group. So with that said, why don't we take it up? Oh, that's interesting. It just popped up there. Your connection is unstable.
Huh.
Isn't that interesting? So why don't we see if we can take just a few questions. William Tell has a 14-foot teepee.
We looked at teepees briefly
We did look at teepees.
before we packed up and moved into an RV.
Yeah. So let's see if there are just a few questions. Then we're going to wrap things up here. And Jessica and I need to get some dinner here too, don't we? Mm-hmm. And I'm going to run a camera here. If we have any questions, or if you have any last
I wonder
questions.
if I is still.
Well, she said there was a typhoon.
She's not online.
I think that makes perfect sense. Well, she thought there was an irony. So one of our dear friends and co-workers at Inspire Nation, Aya, was helping run the chat window. And she said at the beginning of the irony of we're having tropical storm-like winds, and she was in the middle of a typhoon. So because she's in the Philippines. So let's see if we have maybe one or two questions. And if not, we'll call it good here, and we'll get some dinner. And we will see you Tuesday. Oh, my God. Tuesday is going to be my all-time favorite interview with... Who are we talking about if not interviewing on Tuesday?
Michael Lennox.
Oh, actually, no, we're
What?
interviewing Michael Lennox on Tuesday.
What are you talking about?
Tuesday evening on YouTube
Yes.
is our Ruru show.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I was reading comments.
That's okay. So we have the most amazing from hurricanes. Kitchen is on show. Why don't we ask people? Can anybody see or hear us? Or hear us?
Maybe you need to connect to